He's the T-Rex of political talk. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
Well, he's going to be with us till about 45 after in the next hour. And we're going to have wide open phones next hour for G. Edward Griffin. He's a writer and documentary film producer with many successful titles to his credit. He's listed in Who's Who in America. He's well-known because of his talent for researching difficult topics and presenting them in clear terms that all can understand. He has dealt with such diverse subjects as archaeology and ancient Earth history, the Federal Reserve System, international banking, terrorism, internal subversion, the history of taxation, U.S. foreign policy, science and politics, cancer therapy, the Supreme Court, and the United Nations. He's best known for his works include The Creature from Jekyll Island, World Without Cancer, The Open Gates of Troy, No Place to Hide, The Capitalist Conspiracy, More Deadly Than War, The Grand Design, The Great Prison Break, and The Fearful Master. And he's had a long media history. What is it, 45 years fighting the New World Order, G. Edward Griffin?
Well, Alex, I think I really was in full armor and on my horse about 1960. Yeah,
so we're
definitely 1960.
So we're talking about 49 years.
Yeah.
Well, you've certainly done well. You're a living icon, and certainly, you know, you're like good wine, though. You've aged well. You just get sharper and even better.
Thank you. I love that. An icon. Well, okay, I have to be something. Might as well be an icon.
Well, let me just put a plug in here right now, because you are a big part of Fall the Republic. And I want to unveil to listeners the new cover. The first couple of runs we did with the Obama on the cover. And I started thinking, you know, I don't want to make this just about Obama, even though he's their front man. And so we have the Statue of Liberty plunging down to its destruction with Obama down here at the podium. Fall of the Republic Collector's Edition, now available at Infowars.com. When you order it, this is the cover and the film you'll be getting. And I got to say, this latest print, we even did a better res, higher quality encode. Most people won't notice it, but this is just the most beautiful encode we've ever done on a film. It just looks like dynamite. The information is power-packed, and G. Edward Griffin is a big contributor to Fall of the Republic, so I hope folks will get it today. Okay, going back to G. Edward Griffin. G. Edward, I've got so many questions, so many things I want to go over with you today, but the first thing I want to ask you is, 49 years fighting this, publishing best-selling books, really the name over the last half century. You know, you're the person that people point at and say he's the icon. Even if some of the old timers were still alive, you would still be bigger than they are. And I'm not saying that for ego. I'm pointing out you have been a prime mover, a central force against the globalists. And with the long view of history, if we wouldn't have had you and others 50 years ago fighting and planting seeds and getting laughed at, we wouldn't be having this giant awakening that's blooming today that is really threatening the globalists, and they admit in their own documents, as you know, that they could lose control. That's why they're trying to bum rush us right now and bring in the entire program and accelerate it. So people need to understand it's not going to be an instant victory, and we'll talk about your long view of history and how we can beat these people coming up. But first, what is it like to see them openly announcing the world government, openly announcing the carbon tax, openly announcing it's going to be the IMF as the world rulers? We will pay our taxes to private bankers, to Al Gore. Everything you wrote about 20, 30, 40 years ago, because you were reading their own documents, to now see it actually taking place. The republic is falling. The dollar is falling. World government is rising. Break that down. Get into the healthcare takeover, the collectivists, the carbon tax, what we're witnessing, and with your long view of history, how you think this fight is going to unfold. G. Edward Griffin.
Well, that's quite an interesting perspective wrapped up in a question there. I have to answer your question with a single word. It feels eerie. It's like having a bad nightmare, and you wake up and you say, oh, that was just a nightmare. Oh, come on, get it out of your mind. It's just a nightmare. Repeat after me, it's just a nightmare. And then all of a sudden, the events in the nightmare start to unfold before your eyes, and you go back and you say, oh, no, it's not a nightmare, this is reality. And it's that kind of an eerie feeling. You could probably write a good movie around that theme of a nightmare that becomes reality. But that's really how I feel about it. When you read the documents of the elitists of the world, and you know exactly what they plan and how they think, it is sort of an academic experience in the beginning, because you're still living in a system of a lot of freedom and quite a bit of security and prosperity. And so what you're saying, even though you know it's true, has this unreal-like quality. You think, well, am I right? Are they really going to pull that off? And then you look around and say, yep, they're moving on it. So then you go back and you get serious again. But there's a long period in the beginning, Alex, when I have to tell you, it just didn't seem quite real, even though I knew it was. So here we are all these years later, and now, of course, there's no question that the scenarios that we put together, not our scenarios, it was their scenario, actually, that it was quite real. And we're living through it now, and it's kind of like, I use another analogy. It's like you're drifting along in a small rowboat or a canoe, and the water is kind of quiet and calm, and the birds are singing. It's a beautiful sunny day, and there's the water is very calm, and you're moving and enjoying watching the fish jump and all that sort of thing. But you know because you've looked at the map, you know that you're in a river that's headed toward a huge waterfall. And you have a pretty good idea that it's down there maybe a couple of days away. So you're not worried about it now, but you know you've got to get out of that stream of water pretty soon. And so you're drifting along and everything is fine, but the closer you get to that waterfall, the more rapid the water seems to move. And now here we find ourselves with this little rowboat moving quite rapidly, and you can hear the sound, the roar of the water. You can't see it yet, but you can hear it. So that's another way of looking at it. I'm trying to give you the emotional experience that I have. It's a very unnerving thing.
Well, that is a perfect way to describe it. And we've now rounded the bend, and we see the mist and steam rising up from Niagara. And I believe we can now actually see the waterfall. I mean, they're openly announcing world government. They're openly announcing carbon taxes, micromanaging our lives, one-child policies. Times of London comes out and says billionaire club and bid to curb overpopulation, secret meetings. We know that this is a hellish system. And just like people could hear the waterfall in 1917 Russia, or they could hear the waterfall in 1935 Germany, as bad as it already is, we know it's going to get a lot worse. And as you said, as we near the fall, the water gets faster and faster and faster. And the globalists were denying, they were blaring on loudspeakers from the woods on the sides of the river for decades that there is no waterfall. Everything's fine. Go to sleep in the rowboat. Relax. Drink a beer. Watch a ball game. And now as we see the waterfall and see broken ships at the bottom from history and tyranny past and mass murder past, and we see all the ghosts of those killed by tyranny, they're now saying, oh, it is a waterfall, but you're only safe by going over the edge. Global government is the solution. G. Edward Griffin.
Well, I think you said it so well, as usual, Alex. Yeah, they're saying, look, if you stay where you are, you're going to be dashed against a rock. So therefore, go over the waterfall. Come with us. We will lead you over the waterfall. There's a nice big lake down there, and it'll be all calm again. The beginning of the video that you produced, that magnificent video, The Fall of the Republic, you've got a speech by Obama in which he's talking about the need for change. It's kind of his campaign rhetoric, but re-wrapped up in post-presidential events. That, yes, we had no choice. So we had to, we can't look back, he was saying. We can't ignore it. We can't pretend like it's not there. We must deal with it and all of those platitudes. And he's right in that sense. But then he says, we cannot continue what we were doing. But to any informed observer, that's the biggest laugh of all, because that is exactly what the present administration is doing. They are continuing what they were doing, except they're accelerating it somewhat. So there's no change in direction. It's always headed toward that waterfall. And yes, you're quite right. They're saying you got to go over the waterfall because you can't stay where you are. Well, that's not much of a choice, is it?
No, it's not. And on both sides of us are the Republic, beautiful fields, forests. We could build our civilization back if we had the engine of liberty. But instead, they're saying, oh, no, don't get out of the boat. Just keep going over the waterfall. Everything is going to be fine. But we know it's not going to be fine. We know that's 1,000-foot drop down to those rocks below. We know that hundreds of other civilizations have gone over these falls, haven't they?
Oh, yes, they have. And I guess it's time to abandon the analogy because actually when the people who are calling the shots today, they don't like the rowboat we're in. That rowboat provides way too much stability for people in them, and they really want that rowboat destroyed. They want the people in the water. They want the people, clamoring for life rings or little, lifesavers that the government would throw out to them because they want the people out of those boats and into the water.